button, and then we can start with the from your perspective, the business objectives and those priorities.
Yeah, that sounds good. I was also thinking just now, it may be helpful perhaps for me to share we actually with the inventory solutions leadership team, we've just sort of wrapped up the planning for 2019, or at least made good headway in planning, where we have good clarity about priorities from a business perspective. And then the file that I shared was more about our marketing priorities. So if I can share my screen, if that's possible to do.
Let me make you presenter.
Okay.
All right, you're the presenter.
Oh, okay. Easy enough. So you should be seeing a slide that says 2019 strategic priorities.
Yes.
People in a car right there. You see it? Okay. So I'll just talk you through this real briefly. So when you think about the inventory solutions group, which is principally go-to-market as the Manheim brand, this is roughly 3 billion, 3.2 billion of the Cox Auto portfolio in terms of revenue. It is definitely a business that's in a state of disruption, like a lot of businesses, especially legacy businesses that were principally brick and mortar based, not unlike a lot of retailers that have faced a significant transition to a digitized world, especially a digitized world in terms of how their customers want to do business, purchase products, engage with the brand. We're definitely going through that same thing, but just in a wholesale space. And so what the team, and Grace Wong is our president, what Grace and team that we've been working on from a strategy perspective is what role we play in the broader Cox Automotive portfolio. And so there's some key trends that are influencing the strategic direction. And I'll just speak to a couple of these briefly. And some of the terminology may not make as much sense to you, not being as close to the business. So please feel free to just interrupt me or ask questions or what have you. But short story is, whereas in the past, most of our business, the Manheim business, was done at one of our physical auction locations. Dealers come there to buy and sell inventory. Commercial accounts, which I'll use that term broadly, commercial accounts really means any big entity that owns a portfolio of vehicles that they wish to dispose of in the wholesale space. That would include General Motors, Ford, Hertz, Avis, Uber, you name it, right? Wells Fargo, lease portfolios that banks own. We traditionally, our role has been doing the matchmaking, creating the marketplace where those sellers and buyers, i.e. dealers, come together and exchange inventory, right? So that's traditionally happened for throughout many decades in a physical environment. And of course, as digital channels and the ability to access data about those vehicles and to be able to participate virtually in an auction environment, as that's grown, we've seen, especially in the past 5 to 10 years, a real ramp up and acceleration of that buying and selling activity happening outside of the physical lanes. And we've also seen that some of our big commercial accounts are treating the auction as the sort of last resort place that they want to sell vehicles, because they would prefer to, if they could, sell direct to a dealer, bypass the auction entirely because they're going to make more margin. Or in some cases, they may even want to sell directly to a consumer. In the case of, for instance, Hertz, which operates their own direct stores, lots for their cars where they're actually selling to consumers. So we've seen more and more, especially in the past 5 years, I'd say, proliferation of these alternative channels for doing business, and that has continues to have an impact on our business. So we're figuring out ways that we can participate in that new landscape. That's kind of the first 2 points there, if you will. or first 3 points, really. And I think, like a lot of brick and mortar retailers who experience similar challenges and in some cases disintermediation, um, pricing pressure follows that, right? So margins kind of get squeezed, and you have to figure out new ways to add value and convey value and really capture value ultimately. New ways to make money. So we're increasingly selling products and services that in the past would have just been sort of bundled in to, if you came to the auction and you bought a car, you get a series of services. Well, we've sort of unbundled some of those things, and there may be a different fee structure associated with each. For instance, pick a real simple one. We have a product called Deal Shield. So if you're a dealer and you go to an auction, whether that means physically or you participate virtually, and you're gonna buy a car, but maybe you're a little unsure about if the car is the right fit for your lot. We have a product called Deal Shield that's basically like an insurance, a return guarantee product. You can return it, no questions asked, within 21 days. And so, that has become a big, a nice business for us, $50 million plus product offering. So we're doing more and more of those kinds of products and services that we're selling actually both at Manheim, but also selling outside of Manheim in other other parts of the wholesale landscape, including selling some of those products and services to competitors. So that's another big trend. And when we think about impacts for marketing, developing a skill set, or I would say continuing to grow a skill set around product marketing, has become a real important driver for us. And then last thing I'll say here on this sort of key trends slide, everybody and their brother, of course, is talking about mobility, the future of autonomous vehicles and electrified vehicles and shared fleets, shared rides. I read an article the other day about flying cars being tested. So, like it's every day there's some new headline, and that is a really exciting thing. And it's also a really scary thing for a business like us, because obviously, if you envision a world where there are fewer cars being sold to individuals, that has big ramifications on our primary customer base, which is the automotive dealer in the U.S. Significant portion of our revenues comes from dealers, and I don't mean just Manheim's revenue. I mean Cox Automotive. We are highly aligned with auto dealers and have been for forever. So the question is, so what does that model look like in the future? What are the key inflection points of this pivot to a different mobility landscape? And the great news is we really believe that we're positioned well to participate in that future. We think in the near term that probably means that many of the services that we Manheim deliver, will be utilized by companies that operate these fleets of vehicles. So whether that means an Uber kind of arrangement, Lyft, which we already have partnerships there. We do a lot of business with Tesla. We're positioning ourselves to participate in that future, and it may mean doing some of the dirty work for Manheim in the near term. All these cars on the road, whether somebody's driving them or not, they're going to need service. They're going to need washing. They're going to need repairs, maintenance. They're going to need to be stored. They're going to need to be, someone's going to need to operate a platform that manages the deployment. We've got really good assets and resources in all of those spaces. So a big part of what is going on now is figuring out strategically, how do we participate in that, and how do we scale up the solutions that are needed to participate in that future. So I'll pause there and just see if there's any questions or comments on any of what I've shared thus far.
All right. Any questions from the team?
Well, this is all fascinating so far.
Is this the kind of info that's helpful?
From my perspective, absolutely. We have to understand the business in order to provide good guidance. So it's not just valuable, it's required.
Okay, great.
This is Steve. I agree as well. Hey, a quick question around the mobility. Who are your competitors specifically around that? Or do you see?
It seems like everybody. I don't know. Figuring out who our competitors are and who our customers are continues to blend.
Are there like rising niche players that are really typically or specifically focused in this one particular area?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a lot of new niche players, startups, of course, and then there's big organizations at scale.
Right.
I think even like even entities that we would not have thought of as competitors, like a Pet Boys
Right.
type of operation that also has a large number of retail points
Sure.
that provide services as well. Like that they could be competitors, but honestly, they may be a partner.
Right. You feel like you guys are getting ahead of this, or are you feel like you guys are having to catch up?
I think in many ways we actually are current.
Okay.
I
That's
think
good.
in terms of planning and strategy and beginning to align our, I'm speaking now more from a Cox Automotive perspective, in terms of aligning the portfolio of products and services to lean into the mobility future, I think we actually are, I think we're current. But it's, I think that the thing that feels, the area where we feel like maybe we're a little bit further behind is having the right software tools and platforms to be able to go to big enterprise customers with a really integrated solution. A lot of the services that we're offering today are disconnected, and so having it joined up, like go to Uber, go to Lyft, go to whoever, and say, hey, just do business with us, and we'll take care of all your end-to-end needs.
Right. Okay. So you have the capabilities, but it sounds like there's a lot of inefficiencies, especially with regard to software and integration.
Yeah, that's right. And I think in part, a lot of the companies that are pouring big money into the space that are non-automotive companies, they tend to be more software tech firms, and they know nothing about operating a fleet of vehicles. Right? They're not really in it for that game specifically, and so they need the kind of help and service that we can provide. It's just a matter of how do we do that efficiently at scale.
Right. Okay. That helps. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So what does that mean for inventory solutions? And I'll kind of use that inventory solutions. That's our internal moniker for this group, that I mentioned earlier. Is really Manheim. It's our lead brand, our go-to-market. This slide kind of frames up. Here's the trends, just at a high level, and then there's really 4 priorities. 3 that are more external facing. Leading the digital marketplace. What that really means is continuing to evolve our capabilities, enhance the experiences across our websites and like Manheim.com, the transactional tools and channels that we offer, investing in those more aggressively, and just participating. We're the leader in the auction space. We're the leader in the market segment we play in, but we are behind the curve a bit when it comes to digital. And so just really claiming a leadership role in the digital side of our marketplace is what this is all about. So, as Precious knows, because she's deeply immersed in this, there are some big initiatives that we're working on now, like overhauling Manheim.com, our primary site, creating some new products and services that serve the digital marketplace and the marketplace outside of our physical auctions. Those are things that are getting big investment, as I'll kind of show you on the next slide. The second piece is driving efficiencies and improving client experience. So this is a little bit more nuts and bolts, but there's a lot of effort to enhance the operational efficiencies at our auctions and just kind of through our operations. An example of that would be, and this is a pretty basic one, but historically at our auctions, and we operate about 75 of them around the country, we process about 8 million registrations, 8 million vehicles registered at our auctions each year. Of those 8 million, a little more than half actually sell. That's a lot of cars to figure out where they are on these acres and acres and acres that we operate, right? Like, so it's a significant logistical challenge. And so there's a technology that's been developed in partnership with our sister business, Cox Communications, that is kind of a GPS tracking device, but also captures a lot of information about the diagnostics of the vehicle that we're going to roll out to our auction properties, and it's going to save significant time and energy that we have teams of people across the auctions that spend lots of time trying to just track where vehicles are at any given point in time as they move around the lot. So those are the kinds of things that are mostly internally facing, but also will have some inherent client benefits as well. And then the third thing is to, a little bit like what I was talking about a minute ago with mobility, is scaling some of the services that enable our play in the mobility space, and meaning Cox Automotive's play in the mobility space. So this would be things like our reconditioning services that we offer at our auctions. Just, we do that today. We've done it for years, but being able to clean and make maintenance on vehicles, doing that in a more operationally efficient way, and being able to offer that as a product, have a sort of a more standard approach and process. That's the type of thing that would fit here. And then the fourth thing is really a little bit more of an internal thing, but it's really about safety at our auction properties, and just overall, we want to improve the safety aspect of our business. And then lastly, just this is really more of a view of the same four priority strategic focus areas for the business that you see highlighted in these color bars, but then some the big initiatives that represent, or that will be the focus for 2019 specifically. So we're launching this new product called Mannheim Express, which is kind of an app-based, mobile-first auction experience. Enhancements to our marketplace, like I was mentioning, digital properties, our digital marketing capabilities. This is where that sits. Talked about reconditioning services, and then I won't go through these, but sort of a whole, on the right side of the chart, kind of a whole list of things that will enhance the operational efficiency that I mentioned. So obviously, when you think about marketing aspect, I'll maybe transition over and share the deck that I sent out here earlier. We developed this strategic plan blueprint, as we called it, for the next 3 years. My leadership team, we developed this last year, and we're going to be making some tweaks to this in the fourth quarter, but it's because what we're going to do is tailor this to really fit our current view of the new business priorities that I just went through. But largely, sort of the big themes are the same. And just to drill down to the ones that I think are maybe most relevant. Well, I guess I'll start with our mission, because that won't change, which is, we exist to deliver insights and innovative marketing strategies that engage clients and grow revenue. So really, we're very intentional about the language here. That seems pretty straightforward, but we really aspire to be an insights-driven, data-driven marketing organization that does bring innovation, that brings fresh thinking and creativity to the business, and that we're engaging with clients in a way that creates action and that helps to grow revenue. And I think it's important for you guys, for TPG, to understand that historically, marketing at Mannheim was very decentralized. And it's only within the past, call it 10 years, that the notion of a centralized corporate marketing entity took shape. It's probably was about 10 to 12 years ago. And largely at that time, marketing at Mannheim was very services oriented, very reactive, very much about event planning, about if there was creating a national ad campaign of sorts, but really not anything that had connection to what was actually happening on the ground at Manheim locations and the Manheim business. And it was very, very reactive, right? And so what we've tried to build, this journey that we've been on, especially for about the past 5 to 6 years, is to create a more robust marketing capability that services and drives activation around, the key priorities of the business, like we just described, and to build out a more robust structure around driving revenue growth. So a big focus area for us to enable that is around talent development. And we've made good strides. I feel really good about the progress we've made. And of course, probably about every organization or every one of your clients would say talent development is a priority for sure. But for us, it's really about creating that culture to continue to attract and develop and really promote great talent. And with the skill sets that we need to enable this future that we're building together. I think that is going to be particularly important as we do our talent assessment together. I know we'll have a separate conversation about that, but that is a huge priority. We're cultivating the skill sets we need in order to lean into the digital first future for us is certainly a big priority. The second area is around strategic organizational role and partnerships. Again, continue to grow the value that we add by being closely aligned with the business strategy and tying our priorities to that. Brand strategy and activation. So big brands, the big brand at Manheim in Inventory Solutions is Manheim. The other brand that my team's responsible for the other solutions group that we support is called Next Gear Capital. So that's not germane to the work that you guys are doing with us, but it is closely related to sort of what we do. And the reason that this brand strategy and activation focus area is important is because we're really trying to invest in and nurture those brands. Manheim has great brand equity in our market that we participate in, and it's the brand is very synonymous with trust and with partnership and with depth and breadth. So continue to nurture those brands and continue to roll out campaigns and programs that invest in nurturing the health of those brands is a big area of focus. The fourth is around product marketing. And I mentioned this earlier, but just really scaling up. We have a product marketing team, small team in place that are aligned to the different product categories we offer. So that's going great. But just continuing to grow that capability and to tackle things such as sales enablement, and our role as putting the right content into the right hands of our sales team at the right time to drive product adoption and the right kind of conversations with clients. That's a big focus of this group. And then lastly, we've got this under the header of client engagement, which will probably change, but this is where this notion of omni-channel strategy falls in. And with our focus on building out this capability, and really the reason we had it under this client engagement header is being able to flip our marketing model to be more client-centric. Precious has done a great job of really championing this message. But the way we go to market today is very much sort of an event-based, inside-out view of marketing. We have something we want to talk about, like we're launching a new product, or we're having a special event sale at a Manheim location, and then we just all run at the same basic audience with a different message. Typically hammering them with emails from lots of different entities, and we really don't have a sophisticated or even unsophisticated view of, okay, well, we have client segmentation, of course, but we don't really have an approach that says, let's understand what the client is receiving, what they're exposed to, and then let's orchestrate a messaging strategy and program that it's appropriate for and engages them based on what their preferences are, what their needs are, and ultimately how they want to do business. So at the highest level, that's sort of where we're trying to go. So I'll pause there again.
So, Stephen?
Yeah.
Stephen, this is Debbie Gagish. We haven't met yet. I'm one of the partners at the Pedowitz Group, and I'm delighted to be working with you guys.
Thanks,
So I have a question on your key focus areas. Where is digital transformation?
I think it really probably sits in a few areas, but the omni-channel, most specifically, would be within this client engagement omni-channel piece.
Okay.
I feel like there's so much digital transformation happening across the business that we're engaged in multiple aspects of that, including, marketing team has primary responsibility for launching a new pre-login homepage for Manheim.com, which is our primary, go-to-market website. It gets tremendous traffic, right? 70 plus million visits annually. So we're helping to drive that, standing up that new experience, and then certainly we're closely involved in some of the digital products that are being rolled out. Manheim Express is one that I mentioned, and helping to launch that. But then when it comes to like marketing technology, digital tools, digital transformation, a lot of that sits within this client engagement omni-channel bucket.
Okay, that's great. And it can be kind of confusing. You've got digital transformation happening across the wider organization. You also have it happening within marketing. So it sounds like it's just a consistent thread throughout everything that you guys are doing.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a really practical sense, the investments being made, when you look at some of the dollars associated with it, there's at least $50 million in investment that the company is making in digitally oriented or digital first initiatives for next year.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
You bet. Any other questions, comments? Precious, anything you want to add?
There. I think the only thing I was just kind of sort out, but I think you've done a really good job about it, is how we use the word kind of digital. Because I think the other component that wraps into digital is how are we moving our physical auctions into kind of a different type of quote unquote digital model. We use the word digital in that aspect as well as using it for digital platforms and digital kind of thinking. So I feel like across the business, depending on who you talk to, they use the word slightly differently. So that was just kind of what I was thinking through.
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, it's one of the big hot topics of conversation is, we have the 75-ish physical properties auctions, Manheim auctions around the country, in a world where fewer and fewer of our customers are coming to those properties, or at least coming to them for purposes of participating in an auction. How do you use that space, and what do those physical locations become? And so the company's tried things in the past, like creating what's been called like a digital hub, which would be a room or an area at the auctions that is outfitted with lots of screens and computers for clients to be able to engage and do business. But there's all sorts of different opportunities, and I think to your point, Precious, part of where we're going is to figure out how do you blend the inherent physical nature of what we do. There's big hunks of metal at the end of the day that we're moving from place to place, and we're creating an environment where those hunks of metal can be bought and sold. How do you orchestrate the right blend of physical and digital experiences across the assets that we have?
Yeah, and I think the other point is even since I've been here, I've seen a significant shift in our emphasis on the physical locations. I feel like when I, first started at the beginning of the year, that was just more of a predominant topic is how are we getting people to the auctions? And a lot of our communications and our work and the mind share goes to that is what are we telling people to help them get to the auctions, to get to the inventory, et cetera, so that they know where it's located. And just as of late with the Manheim.com relaunch, what I'm seeing is you'll even see in like the design when it comes out next year is there isn't as much of a predominance on the actual physical locations versus the marketplace as a whole and trying to unify that you can get inventory anywhere and services anywhere. And so like at the back of my mind, I'm kind of thinking, okay, how are we pivoting as a marketing organization? Because part of our priorities and our strategy has been to that and to promote these products through, those locations. So as we become more digital, what aspects of our priorities change and our objectives so that we're moving along with everybody else.
Stephen, again, this is Debbie, as I take a look at your key focus areas, and Precious, as I listen to you talking about the changes that you guys are making and how exciting everything is, one of the things that I like is I like that your key focus area is client engagement versus having digital transformation, because we see a lot of companies who think that if they change the technology, then magic happens. And what you're saying is that, nope, this key focus area is client engagement. And then to develop and execute that integrated omni-channel marketing strategy, and an enabler of that will be digital. So I like this approach a lot.
Yeah, that's great. I think you hit it on the head. That's what we're aiming to do for sure. And I think one of the other interesting things about our business, is our core client today, i.e., the auto dealer. They are very, very, very resistant to change. And so I think part of our challenge as we go forward is to, as we develop these capabilities, and I mean even simple things, right? Like being able to utilize text and SMS, or being able to leverage our call center in a different way, or certainly as we overhaul the mobile app, for instance, the change management associated with not just the internal piece, which is probably easier, but the client change management and how we walk them down a path that feels very seamless, that the things that we're doing naturally feel natural to them and align with how they want to do business with us. That's a significant challenge.
It is. And again, I think quite often we've worked with organizations when they're making this kind of change, they'll have someone from the Office of Change Management. And what they do is they come into these initiatives and they apply the thinking that you just outlined and make sure that everyone recognizes that this is a huge change initiative and that small steps happen along the way with everyone that's involved in that change. So that is exactly the way you do it, just exactly the way that you described it, Stephen. And you're right, change is hard for anyone. And I can just imagine the dealerships are, particularly reluctant to change. So again, you've got the right approach to it. So that's very exciting to see.
And to tag on to what Debbie was just saying, this is Lorena Harris. I just wanted to, if you could speak for a second about whether you have full control of all the levers to pull to get to your 3-year goals, or whether you have dependencies and connections with Cox Communications, marketing, shared services that have to be worked through.
That's a great question. We definitely have dependencies, for sure, but I would say it's less about dependencies on the different divisions of Cox Enterprises, like Cox Communications, but more so dependencies on our key partners within Cox Automotive, cross-functionally. So the technology team obviously is a big player in this. I would say that our sales organization is a big player in this, that we have some dependencies on, and product as well, our product management team. Those would be three that we certainly have some tendencies there. I think the good news is, though, that there is there's good support for achieving these goals, and I think that the business leaders, the leaders over those functional areas, those teams that I just outlined, they definitely see this omni-channel revenue-focused marketing strategy as being an important component of the overall priorities, strategic priorities for Inventory Solution, and a driver of achieving those goals, the business goals, not just, hey, that's the marketing team over there and they've got some stuff they want to get done, and that sure is nice, which sometimes happens when you're in marketing, right? Especially B2B. I don't think this is being looked at as another marketing campaign. I definitely feel good support from the president of the business unit to her leadership team, that they want to see this be successful. They want to partner with us. That's not to say there won't be challenges, that we won't run into roadblocks, that there won't be issues with prioritization or sort of resource planning with those other groups, because we're going to need them. But I do think, generally speaking, we've got good momentum here.
So, Stephen, does the marketing team have some kind of revenue number or revenue contribution metric tied to client engagement?
We do not currently.
Okay.
I think, but that is a goal. If you'd seen some of the communication we've had back and forth over the past week, that's definitely been a topic. We can attribute revenue in some instances to marketing efforts, with varying degrees of direct attribution, but it's not. That has not been. Or I should say that is an area where we have a great opportunity, and that I hope that one of the outcomes of all of the work that we're doing will be a more consistent lens into revenue impact, and I do think it will be.
Okay, it sounds like you're definitely on the path to do that. Once you continue down this path of digital transformation, and you've got that data, those are the enablers for the marketing team to actually demonstrate an impact on revenue. So you're right, you're definitely going in that direction.
Yeah, I think you hit the key point there about the data, and having access to availability of data, especially by product line. We haven't really had that before, but that is another work stream that's happening that we're really excited about. That actually the sales team is also going through something of its own digital transformation, and a byproduct of that will be a reporting system and a measurement system that allows for the capturing of data across the various product lines.
Yeah, that'll be really great. That'll be really great for sales, for marketing, and for the business.
Yep. I mean, our model, historically, the Manheim model historically, the whole P&L was driven by vehicle transactions. So if a car sells in an auction, we collect fees. We collect, a buy fee from the buyer. We collect a sell fee from the seller. And there may be some other associated fees, just based on whatever services you were getting. But it was, it's historically been just very fee-based, based on a transaction. So all of the measurement systems that have been set up historically in the business have been based on that. How many transactions did we drive? Okay, we made the fee revenue off of those transactions, and that's the deal. So moving to more of a, kind of decoupled financial view of associating revenue with these products and services, in addition to the fees, has been a pretty Herculean undertaking, especially because the business has really been grown and scaled through acquisition. Cox bought Manheim Auto Auction, which is the original, was in Pennsylvania back in the 60s, and then made a ton of acquisitions over the next 30 years. but they sort of operated it separately, like a holding company, and then started to integrate the systems. But that's been, the past 10 years has been most of that, 10 to 15 years has been most of that centralization has happened. So, as you can imagine, that has not led to like clean data sets, ability to measure and report. It's been really choppy. It's getting better, and the investments are happening, but it's been a struggle.
Hey, this is Precious. I just kind of wanted to add one thing as we're kind of thinking about priorities and digital transformation and, that it is a journey and things like that. I think Stephen said something to me that's really stuck with me that I've been noodling on, which is because of this sheer size and scale and mass that we have, we are very fortunate that we're not in a situation where we have to do a lot of things to move the needle, like a lot of little things as far as mass and volume, tactically. But if we can pick a couple of the very right things to do and move the needle a little, it will really drive the revenue. So I think as we think about omnichannel and this journey over the next couple of years, and specifically 2019, where we have to work really hard to figure out what are those right things to help prove out the model. I think that's where, we would appreciate that help and that laser focus, because the other dependency we have is all these technology implementations, right? We all know, having gone through them, sometimes they go well, sometimes they don't, sometimes they happen on time, sometimes they, do. And so that's a big variable for us, because we are going to be dependent on a lot of other groups to get that done. And so I think in the meantime, how do we figure out what we can do in the current state that we're in, one or two things, or even, whether or not the technology comes through that could still translate when we do have the right capabilities. So that's just something else, just for all of us to kind of think about as we're thinking about the roadmap, is how do we get really crisp?
And Precious, that is very, very astute. And let me tell you why. A few years ago, we were working with a really large, very well-known technology company. And they were about at the stage that you are, and they turned everything on. They had a billion people visiting their website every year, and they turned that on to create leads. And so marketing, they did, quote unquote, their job. However, the field was not ready to catch those leads. So literally millions of leads were not followed up on. So you're right, taking the time to take a look at where's the quick win and what are those connective pieces that you need to ensure that it gets done. That's very smart. And again, we have all the lessons learned. We've seen all the good ways to do it. We've seen all the bad ways to do it. And so we can definitely look for some early quick wins for you guys.
That'd be great.
That whole notion of lead generation, I'm glad you brought that up, because we really don't have a robust system in place for lead gen, for lead capture and lead management. So that's a really interesting area for us, I think, especially as we try to drive product adoption and cross-sell various products and services with clients. In part, that's been because we're depending on where you are in the inventory solutions business, you're probably on a different CRM platform or a different instance. So as those things start to come together, it makes it easier, but that's definitely an opportunity for you.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there was, I think one of the other bullet points in the agenda was around the journey that Precious helped us orchestrate, and for whether you use Dealer Bob or Dealer Blake. I'm not sure exactly what we wanted to chat about there. I don't know, James, if you want to add any context, but happy to weigh in.
Well, I think we cover that with talking about the digital approach and the omni-channel and your points of your key focus points. So I think we've kind of gone over those from that perspective. And, we talked about SMS real quick and text, and then kind of bringing that holistic line of communication. That way, it's not really broken into different parts. It's all streamlined to the customer with that client engagement approach. So I think we've touched on that from that perspective in terms of Blake and the need to drive forward with digital.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I think that, as Precious was kind of alluding to, we can make a big impact even by doing a relatively short, small number of things, implementing some what might otherwise seem like minor enhancements or additions. So for us, I think it's really about prioritizing what capabilities or what experiences within that journey, or maybe a different journey that we create, which specific things we want to prioritize to light up first and in what sequence. How do we think about, with all the different touch points throughout the client's journey with us or journeys with us, how do we sequence those in terms of the capabilities that we want to light up? And so that's we've been talking about that, and we'll get to some definition there. But once we build out what that looks like, what those priorities are, I think things will start to come into focus even more.
All right, quick. I want to do a quick time check. I know we got about 6 minutes, so I want to make sure we get to as many questions, if there's any out there, as possible from our team. Steve, Kevin, Debbie, Beha, any questions from you guys?
I'm good right now, James.
Okay, thank you, Debbie.
Same here. Same here.
Yep, me too.
Steve, do you have anything, Steve?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, I do have one comment. Again, this is Debbie. This was very helpful. Just knowing strategically and seeing the way you've broken everything down is going to help our team be looking for those things that help meet these goals. So having that strategic guidance is invaluable. So thank you for sharing that with us.
And
You bet. Yeah.
And Stephen, is the 2019 priorities available to be sent to our team?
We just finished those, so
okay.
My answer is probably not yet.
Okay.
But
no worries.
I will be able to get those to you. I just want to make sure. I don't think we've distributed them broadly, and so just want to respect that process. But
okay.
Yes, we'll be able to share them with you. And certainly anything we talked about today, please feel free to share, and I'll see if I can get a hard copy to you shortly.
Okay. Yeah, and as I mentioned in my previous email, if the one that you were just sharing just a second ago, if that PowerPoint is not available to, the broader team and things of that nature, me and Precious do have a separate group set up on our extranet, which is our document repository that is just available to our team and Precious. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And what I was referring to is this document.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
That's the one that I probably can't distribute yet, but the other one that I sent to you is perfectly good to distribute.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Stephen, as Debbie mentioned, thank you for taking time out of your day to walk through this with us. I think it's going to give us tremendous value as we go and look to prioritize and organize and put things together based on the information you've provided today. I do know we have a call early next week, specifically with our team that's going to be handling the talent assessment regarding kind of the prioritization. I think that's next. Let me check and make the calendar. It's Monday.
Monday.
Yep, Monday at 10:30.
Great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I would just say, I know that you guys you got a lot of conversations to have and a lot of due diligence to do here across the board, but I want to reiterate that this effort and this partnership with TPG is seriously one of our top priorities, one of my personal top priorities, and the effort around omnichannel. And so I just want to make sure that if there is at any point an area where you feel like you need more clarity on, or I can provide some perspective, or something you feel like is maybe not going as smoothly that I can help with, please don't hesitate to reach out, because I definitely want to support all the effort that's going into this initiative.
Thank you for that. All right. Well, I will go ahead and close the meeting for today. As I mentioned, thank you, Stephen, for taking the time out. Precious as well. Precious safe travels back from San Francisco from Dreamforce. And if there's any questions that